Let me say this right off the bat, okay? Because, while we're on the subject of this whole WWE versus AEW thing, let me establish something right now. I'm a person of color. And you may say, well, what does that have to do with anything? I'll tell you what it has to do with. You see, WWE, and really the wrestling industry in general, but WWE particularly, have done and said some questionable things when it comes to people of color. They really have. I mean, they've got R-Truth acting like a clown. I don't even know what you call that. I've been concerned about that since 2011. You know what I mean? Then they got this thing with the Street Profits. How come they have to have the whole stereotypical ghetto persona? Like, I don't get that. Then they had the Crime Time, and I'm like, what is all this? And as questionable as they have been, this is what I don't understand. How can you be with a company for years, and then once you leave that company, now you're talking trash about them? And I understand they're not a perfect company, but you see, guys like Dean Ambrose, Chris Jericho, they were with WWE for years, and a lot of other people were with WWE for years, and now that they've left, now they want to talk trash about WWE. I don't get it. Where was all this when you were in WWE? This is what I don't get. And then I know they'll probably go on there and say, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Make me understand. I want to understand. Where was all this years ago? I didn't hear anything about this. I want to establish that right now. And, they're talking all this trash, especially Jericho. He's talking all this trash because he's beating WWE in the ratings war. And he's calling himself the demo god and all this. Listen, I'm going to be straight up with you. The little bit that I do know about Chris Jericho, I was never really a Chris Jericho fan. Because you see, first, Chris Jericho left WCW in 1999. He left WCW. Then he came over to WWE. And then he left WWE and went to AEW. It makes me wonder, with a person that has a history of doing this, is he going to leave AEW if another wrestling company should emerge and pop up out of nowhere? Is he going to leave AEW? I was never really a fan of Chris Jericho. I just wasn't. I can't stand for somebody to be quiet as a mouse, and then when something better comes along, then they start talking trash. Then they have so much to say. And I'm going to be honest with you. I would say both of them suck, but I don't know much about AEW, so I can't say that. But I'll say WWE sucks. I just don't like it how they're dissing WWE now all of a sudden. But really, I think wrestling is dead anyway. Wrestling's dead. It just is. I mean, sure, they have their fan base. They'll always have their fan base. But it'll never be what it once was. And how about this for WWE? Instead of depending on legends, why don't you try writing better storylines? Try that. Find out what each wrestler is good at and make them exercise their talents. Try that. instead of depending on guys like Goldberg, depending on guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, The Undertaker, or maybe you're depending on the female legends like Trish Stratus, Lita. Mickie James is basically headed that way. She's basically a legend now. Instead of doing that, try making better superstars of the people you have there with you. Because God forbid, what if something happens to The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Undertaker? Stop depending on the past and look to the future. That's what I have to say about the whole thing. You want to beat AEW? Look to the future, write better storylines, and for goodness sake, get rid of this PG garbage. That's not going to cut it. People like edgier TV. That's just the way it is. You're going to have to get rid of it. And I understand where you're coming from, WWE. I get it. You have sponsors. So you can't really say what you want to say. Listen, I totally get that. I do. I get your problem. Because I can't say what I want to say anymore. Why is that? Because people look at my channel and they don't want their name associated with my brand if I'm doing and saying unsavory things. And I can understand that. Because a wise man, at least wise in the podcast business, he's from Fangoria magazine. Now he works for Paramount. He taught me that they're not going to want to associate with you if you do questionable things, say questionable things. So WWE, I get where you're coming from, but I'm saying to you, either you want to win or you don't. You know, a very famous rapper once said, or at least he allegedly said it, I never heard him say it, but they claim that Tupac Shakur said, you either evolve or you disappear. I never heard him say that. I only read the quote. So if he really did say that, he's correct. WWE, if you want to win this war, this ratings war, this viewing war, this viewership war, you're going to have to do better than you're doing. You're going to have to bring back the old days. I know you have sponsors. I get it. But you can definitely afford to take a bigger chance than my little rinky-dink YouTube channel can. You can afford to take that risk. I cannot. So you can do and say those edgy things. I cannot. So I would advise you to do it if you want to win. And like I said, where AEW is concerned, now you guys want to talk trash. You same guys that were in WWE just a few short years ago. Because I got news for you. Chris Jericho was in WWE a few short years ago. Dean Ambrose was in WWE a few short years ago. And now all of a sudden, now that they're not there anymore, now that something better has come along, now they've got so much to say. So much trash to talk. I can't stand people like that. Where were you before when you were unhappy? I didn't hear one word. So, I'm just saying, you've got guys like WrestleLamia, WrestleHub, and all these other YouTube channels. reporting this stuff, and I'm like, well, where was this years ago? I don't get it. Where was this? It wasn't here. That's where. And like I said, wrestling's dead anyway. And I got news for you. I'm going to be honest with you. Because even though I have to watch what I say, even though I can't just go around shooting off at the mouth and all this stuff, I got news for you. I wouldn't go to a WWE show. I wouldn't go. My cousin took his kids, I think it was last year. I wouldn't go because it's not worth going. You know what I mean? They don't have any good superstars there anymore anyway. And the only good superstar that I like, my favorite superstar, is a woman. So that just shows you how much the product has changed. And I'm not saying anything against women. I'm saying most guys like male superstars. You never heard anybody back in the day say, oh, my favorite superstar is Terry Runnels. You didn't hear that back in the day. Or my favorite superstar is Stephanie McMahon. You didn't hear guys say that. They would say, oh, my favorite superstar is Triple H. Or my favorite superstar is Stone Cold Steve Austin, or The Rock, or The Undertaker, or John Cena, or what have you. But nowadays, the women have taken over. So it sounds funny for me to even say my favorite superstar is Becky Lynch. It just sounds so weird. It just goes to show you how much things have changed. And like I said, I stopped really liking WWE in 2002 anyway, after Stone Cold and Rock left. And I wouldn't go to WWE. They're doing and saying questionable things. Well, with people of color, I got news for you. As a person of color, I don't want to go. I wouldn't go anyway. It's boring. It sucks. That's all I'm going to say about it.